Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 126 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined, as always, by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hello, college football fans and Husker fans.
Hello, everybody. For those listening to the podcast for the first time, we are a father-son duo here to talk about college football by college football fans for college football fans. And today we'll be focusing a lot on our favorite team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and our predictions for the upcoming season. But before we get into that, we are going to do our tradition of cracking open a beverage. Today I have some Japanese Sapporo, one of the beers I liked quite a bit when we went to Japan a few years ago.
That's cool, Alex. And I will simply say that I don't have a beer in front of me. I happen to be traveling this time, so I'm doing this podcast from the great state of Minnesota and just visiting family, and happened to spend some time at the Shell Brewing Company, a brewery I'm fond of, and is in fact the second oldest brewery in the United States, second to Yuengling out in Pennsylvania, and drank some of their wonderful beverages during the early Oktoberfest celebration that they had yesterday.
Ooh, that is cool.
It was.
All right. Well, here goes mine then. All right, there we go. So our last podcast was right in the midst of the crazy conference realignment talk with the Big Ten getting USC and UCLA. We were talking about a lot of the different possibilities at that time. And in terms of where we are now, which is mid-August, there haven't really been any crazy updates. I've seen some different things about, Notre Dame, how good they feel about their independence these days because of how, valuable it clearly is and stuff like that. So it doesn't seem like they're budging in the immediate future to me.
I would agree with you. I think all their rhetoric, if you want to call it that, coming out in the media is sending a very strong signal that they have no intention of joining a league anytime soon. So I really think the Big Ten's thoughts now have shifted away from them. They've conceded that, okay, we get it. You don't want to be a part of this, so we're going to do what we feel is the right thing to do. And I just still believe that in the grand scheme of things, the Big Ten is likely to still add a few more teams, most likely additional teams from the Pac-12, but we'll see.
Yes, we'll see how that all plays out. And of course, we'll do a emergency pod if necessary to cover any breaking news.
Exactly.
Of course, there have been various reports and things coming out about the fall practices, on who's been injured, how the quarterback battle is going, things of that nature. I know that Scott Frost did say a week or two ago that the quarterback job is basically Casey Thompson's to lose. He's the clear, number one in Frost's mind, unless somebody else really outperforms him in practice, which I think isn't a surprise to anybody. That's the reason why we got him transferred in from Texas to begin with. I'm not too surprised to hear that the defense has kind of surpassed some people's expectations because last year our defense was pretty salty a lot of the times and kept us in games when our offense was faltering. And even in the spring game, I commented how people were apparently expecting the offense, the red team in that case, to win. And the defense really kind of showed up in a lot of areas that game. A little hard to judge how good that really is when it's against your own offense. But I'm very happy to hear that special teams has seen a marked improvement. That was obviously an area where we were extremely deficient last year, and assigning a whole coaching position to it, one would hope that we would see improvements there. So I'll be keeping an eye on that in our first game of the year against Northwestern for sure.
I'm going to read you a document from the On3 website. And it was a response to some information. It says, appropriate that Kool-Aid was invented in Nebraska. I drink. The Kool-Aid tastes fantastic. And I feel like we do this every year, right? Where we do that.
Yep. It's true. It's true. I mean, obviously, there's more to it this time than before because we've got so many new coaches, a brand new quarterback, lots of transfers. It's a more changed team than perhaps in previous years, and the fact that basically everybody knows that this is Scott Frost's do or die year. If we have another disappointing majority loss season, he's gone. So,
Right.
there's that kind of air hanging over everything.
I agree, but I feel like Scott has handled that well. I think he's perfectly content, or I won't say content. That's the wrong. He's comfortable with the recognition that he has to perform this year, or he's gone. Right? That's not like he's all stressed about that. Now you can do that when you're getting paid $6 million a year, and you've been hopefully banking a lot of that stuff. So if he never works another day in his life, which won't happen, even if he completely falls on his face this year at Nebraska, he will still end up getting picked up as an assistant coach by some other college and eventually work his way back to offensive coordinator and maybe even later in his career get another head coaching opportunity somewhere. That's my prediction, speculation. Now, obviously, if he has success this year and extends his time at Nebraska, maybe good things will happen and he'll figure it out.
Right.
But the bottom line is he's not letting that stress and tension. He's not so far let that get into the players' heads, into the culture of the program. So hopefully he'll be able to continue to do that because we have some early success.
When I go on like Husker Max and some of these websites, I keep seeing this thing "break the curse." Is that like the PR thing they're going with this year?
Oh no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that's a formal thing. That would be a horrible thing. If it is formal, I'm not seeing it and I hate it.
Okay.
I've not seen that. But I suspect there's a lot of people saying that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that's what it is too, because I agree with you. If that's official PR, that's a terrible slogan.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think it is.
Okay.
Nope.
That's good. Last little thing I want to mention in terms of practice and everything is that there was some news recently that our wide receiver DeColdis Crawford is out with a knee injury, and it said it will be an extensive leave of absence. No further elaboration than that, but that's another kind of hit to that wide receiver core.
Well, two things about that. Number one, Coach Frost is always very tight with the injury information to the point of absurdity, right? And this is just another example of that. He tore his ACL. Pretty much everybody has figured that out. He's out for the year. Now, that's bad news for him particularly, but he was really not in the mix to be in the top 6 or 8 wide receivers. He was a true freshman. He was coming in. What he's going to miss out on is all the practice he would have had this year, right, as a backup. He would have been an important player in our practice squad, that helps prepare the defense for the next team's offensive arrangement and alignment. Missing out on that. Plus, with the new rules, he could have played 4 games and still kept his eligibility, right? So he could have played against some other lesser teams in blowouts and gotten some opportunity to be on the field and really show what he was capable of and really build during this year. That's all been taken away from him now because of that injury. So that's the disappointing thing for him in terms of the actual, direct on the field effect. Not much for this season from him. Just the longer term issue. And guys like that now, I'm worried about how does he keep a good attitude and stick with the program, or does he kind of deteriorate and get homesick, and then next thing you know, he's in the transfer portal. So I'm hopeful he can hang in there, and his team supports him, and he recovers from that injury and has a great career.
Yes,
down the road.
Yes, totally agreed. Okay, so is there anything else you want to mention before we get into our preseason predictions?
Well, I was just going to say that without being able to see the offensive line in action really in any significant way, and even during the spring game, it was very hard to decipher much because a lot of the players were out. We talked about DeColdis Crawford. The other guy is Turner Corcoran, right? Who is going to be or was going to be our starting left guard, and is probably our one of our top 2 or 3 offensive tackles, but we've moved him to guard because we can, right? Because we have 2 other tackles that we think are going to be a better fit, and we think he can be a great guard. Well, but he's not practicing. He's been injured, did not practice in the spring, and now this fall hasn't really gotten that many days of camp. That concerns me a great deal. He is vitally important to that offensive line. If we have him right next to Teddy Proshek, who is basically a true freshman offensive lineman, who is not true freshman, excuse me. He played last year and then got hurt, but I believe he was able to preserve his redshirt year. So with him and Teddy next to each other, the left side of our offensive line would have been pretty salty, really potentially very good. But now I'm not sure. So that's the big key. That has such an impact on what I think the team can do for the year. So because you're always optimistic at the beginning of the year, I'm going to go with the optimistic view of his availability.
Yeah. Yes, there we go. Optimism. I like to hear it.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of our schedule. I'm sure many Nebraska fans listening know it well, but here we go. We have the game at Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland to start off the season. Then we have North Dakota at home, Georgia Southern home, Oklahoma home, Indiana home, at Rutgers, at Purdue, Illinois home, Minnesota home, at Michigan, home with Wisconsin, and at Iowa to end out the season. So looking at that list of teams that we've got to play this year, I kind of did my own little kind of configuring of how many games I think we could potentially win, in an optimistic scenario and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of came to the same conclusion that I've had for the past few years under Scott Frost, in that we should be able to win 7, potentially, if things really go well, 8 games. But it never does seem to go that way. We always lose these close games against these teams like a Purdue or a Northwestern or a Minnesota, the teams I feel like we should be able to beat, that we're more talented than. So that, to me, that's the real question. Like those there's the teams we really should win that are earlier in the year, and they're the teams we really should lose to later in the year. And it's those intermediate teams in the middle that I think are going to be the real deciding point of whether we have a good season or a bad season this year. What's kind of your thoughts on that?
I don't think I heard anything you just said that isn't true. But I guess my thought would be that, as I look at it, you look at the individual games and you can definitely see a path to, like you said, 7 or 8 wins, maybe even 9, right? And that's assuming that you play well and consistent football, right? Clean football generally. And then in terms of just our talent level against our opponents, then I think we could be in that 7 to 9 range. We could. But our history tells us that we're going to lose 2 games we shouldn't, right? So that drops that 7 down to 5, or that 9 down to 7, right? And so I would say that that's our range, right? Our range is 5 to 7.
Right.
That's what I think. And that's where, as we're starting to get closer and closer to the season, the priority of certain games. Like if we lose to Oklahoma in that 4th game of the year, does that derail our season? No, it doesn't. But if we lose to Northwestern in game 1, that has a huge, huge impact on the trajectory of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that statement?
No, I definitely do. So to me, the 4 teams that I am just assuming we are going to lose to are Oklahoma, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Iowa, I know we should have beaten them last year, but we also played them in Lincoln, and this time we're playing them at Iowa. So I'm going to presume that that's a loss. And then my thought on 7 and 5 is that we lose those 4 and then lose one more along the way to somebody we shouldn't. But if we came out of this at 7-5, I wouldn't be like overjoyed, but I would definitely be satisfied with that. And I think that's enough for Scott to keep his job for sure.
I totally agree. And especially if those were the losses, right? I think Nebraska fans could accept a loss to Oklahoma, a loss to Michigan. Those are losses that we would look at and say, okay, yep, we're not there yet, but this is a definite step in the right direction. And at 7-5, that would put us in a bowl game with an opportunity, hopefully, to play a competitive team and beat them in a bowl game, right? And as long as we didn't end up with some crazy, stupid matchup where somebody, they end up setting us up and aligning us with a team that's way better from the SEC or something. You know what I mean? Like if we ended up in a reasonable matchup, we win that bowl game, and now you got 8 wins. That's a good season. That's a season Nebraska fans could feel good about, right?
Yep.
So I totally agree with you. But here's the thing. It all centers on Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we lose that game, not only are we 0-1 on the season, we're 0-1 in the conference. We're 0-1 in the West Division after the first week. And so then we beat North Dakota and we beat Georgia Southern, let's just say. And then we go into that Oklahoma game 2-1 in Lincoln, right? Now it doesn't have any national focus because we're only 2-1. And, Oklahoma comes in and just probably cleans our clock. And now we're 2-2. And we're back to that same old thing again. And eventually the wheels come off at the end when we have to play Michigan and Wisconsin and Iowa all towards the end of the season. And it just gets ugly. By then we probably would have a fired coach, right? We'd be looking for a new coach. But if instead we beat Northwestern and then we find ourselves 3-0 going into Oklahoma, that means we got some hype around that game because in all likelihood Oklahoma's going to be 3-0. Going into that game. And it's in Lincoln. So some national attention on Lincoln. The fan base will be hyped. That game will have great energy. What if we pull off the upset, right? Oklahoma has its share of issues. They just, their quarterback's coach / offensive co-coordinator, whatever you want to call him, had to resign like last week. So that's a big deal. And he's been with that program since Bob Stoops.
Right.
So he was a key fixture. He played for them.
Right.
I mean, he's an alumnus. That's a big, big deal.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind that doesn't come through when I just list off the games like that, but that Northwestern game is technically a week 0 game. It's before most other teams. So I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule right now, and they actually only play 2 teams before they play us. So they would be 2-0.
Oh, so they'd be 2-0. Okay.
And they're UTEP and Kent State. So they will be 2-0. Like I can't see them losing.
Exactly. But they will have not faced anybody of significance. And then they go into the lion's den of a 3-0 Nebraska team with a fan base that's so rabid from anxiety and energy of shitty seasons that that the energy in that stadium might be blowing the roof off.
Yep.
Right. And what happens then? And maybe something special happens.
Right. Well, and we played them at Oklahoma last year and we're winning for a good bit of that game.
We were winning in the fourth quarter. We should have beat them.
Yep.
I mean, just if we execute 2 or 3 additional plays, we beat them. I mean, that's how close we were to beating that. So that's the thing, and that's why we get back to Northwestern. Now, here's the bad news. We did beat Northwestern handily last year.
Yes, it was our best game.
Exactly. It's the best game, in my opinion, of the Scott Frost era. The most complete game, both offensively and defensively, of the Scott Frost era.
Mm-hmm.
We've never done that to Northwestern 2 years in a row. We've never been able to beat them soundly 2 years in a row. And in fact, I think they've never beaten us 2 years in a row either. But this series has been super, super tight. And their coach, Fitzgerald, just won't allow his team to be as bad as they were last year. They were really quite bad defensively last year because they had a first-year defensive coordinator and they were adjusting. And it wasn't going well at the time that they played us. But by the end of the season, they had gotten better. And their quarterback play last year was atrocious. Now, this year, they have better quarterback play. So their two weaknesses, I guarantee you, have been shored up. Now, the question is, have ours, right? Can we continue to have offensive success against them with all of our offensive linemen that have had to be replaced, and our quarterback being different? They struggled with an athletic quarterback. Their defense really struggled to defend Martinez last year. Martinez had an All-American day against them. Our new quarterbacks, they're not Adrian Martinez, right? They are not going to be that guy. So the threat isn't there. And so their defense is going to be able to focus in on our scheme a lot more and not have to worry about a guy scrambling and running around. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so I worry greatly. And then you mix in the whole Ireland thing. That's going to be tough.
Right.
But that's a huge game.
Well, I agree with you. It's definitely a huge game. And for a fact that since we beat them so bad last year, Pat Fitzgerald has had that game circled on the schedule throughout fall practice here on their end.
Absolutely.
But, and you can correct me because I'm not sure how like the tickets in Ireland are, dished out or whatever, but I expect that stadium to be more red than purple, just given how Nebraska travels.
Yeah, yes, I think that is true. So far, I think the number of tickets sold would be maybe like 11,000 or so Nebraska fans have already bought tickets, and maybe 6,000 or 7,000 Northwestern fans. It's not the 20,000 or 25,000 that they were hoping. I think they were hoping for between Nebraska and Northwestern that they were going to get about 25,000 fans to travel over to the game, and then locals would fill in the rest, so to speak. And I don't think they got even close to that. I mean, there's still been a great deal of hesitation on the part of Americans to travel abroad, and then you combine that with the fact that both teams are coming off of basically 3-9 records. You're not going to build a lot of momentum with those two teams playing, right? But it is a Big Ten conference game. It's very important to both teams, so the teams will recognize the intensity and the importance of the game. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And there will be more Nebraska fans there, but I don't think it'll be overwhelmingly red. I'll be interested to see. Since I'm going to be in the seat, I'll be part of that red.
Yep, you'll be part of it, and I'll be watching the game from here in California, rooting on the Huskers.
You should be with me, buddy. You should be with me. I've got a ticket. You want to look at last-minute flights, pal? I've got a ticket for you.
I don't know, man. I was looking at just at flights to Florida, and it's going to cost me over $800. It's insane.
Oh, my. No, it's not.
That's for Christmas.
You're flying across.
That's for Christmas, of course, Christmas. But still.
Right,
it's
It's
wild out here.
I know.
But in terms of the season, so I'm just going to say my optimistic prediction is 8-4. My semi-optimistic prediction is 7-5, and then my more pessimistic, if things go badly, prediction I would say is probably like a 4 or 5 win season would be my more pessimistic prediction. So those are my 3 venues for how the season goes this year. If we get 4 or 5 wins, Scott is fired, and we're looking for a new coach.
That's weak. That's weak, Alex. Come on. Well, you got to have a take. You can't have 3 choices. Well, maybe I can see 2, but you can't have 3.
All right. So fine.
Give me 2 of those.
My
3.
semi-optimistic one is the one I'm the most confident in. So I'll say 7-5.
7-5. Okay, and then 4 wins on the bottom side.
Yes.
Okay, and this record does not include a bowl game in either in any case.
Just regular season.
Just regular season. Okay. So I'm going to say I would agree with you that I think 7-4 would be, I would view as a season that in which this particular squad and this, set of circumstances, new coaches, all that sort of stuff. I think 7-5 is a record that I think would be acceptable, right? That would be considered and viewed as progress. And I think is achievable. So I'm going to say that's where we end up landing for a lot of the same reasons you did. There's some teams that I think it's very unlikely that we beat, the same teams you described. And then there's some teams we're going to lose one that we shouldn't. And until Scott and his staff can prove to me that they can win a game in which, outsiders and even someone like us would look at it and say, you know what, the other team's better than us, we're going to lose, and then they actually win it. Like, what if we beat Oklahoma, or we beat Michigan, or we beat Wisconsin, right? Then that would flip the one that we lose to, that, when we lose to Illinois and we're not supposed to, right? That where everybody's like, Nebraska's got more talent, they should beat Illinois, and then we lose to them like we did last year.
Right.
But as you were going through that, you look at the home and away, right? I mean, really, we get Wisconsin at home, we get Michigan away, so that was going to be a loss most likely anyway. Okay, it's still a loss. But Wisconsin at home, maybe that's one we can pull off, right? We play Northwestern over in Ireland. If we can get that win, that just becomes huge, because I think it gives us momentum. I think the Oklahoma game, honestly, if we don't lose to Northwestern and we can build and truly build and play clean football in those first 3 games, or cleaner football. I know we won't play clean. It's the beginning of the year. I could see us really giving Oklahoma a run for their money. Mm-hmm. I just have a feeling that's one we could maybe get.
Nope.
Right. But then I think we lose to we lose to Minnesota, because we always lose to Minnesota. It's just ridiculous, right? We should never lose to those guys, and we get beat by them every year, and not even close.
Right.
And that's a coaching thing.
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with you that I think Oklahoma is possible, especially if we're coming off the momentum of 3 wins in a row.
Right.
But one thing I definitely want to mention is that it's very important that we have a lot of success in the first half of our season, because the second half is a lot tougher. That stretch of Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa is like all in a row, no bye weeks. All of our bye weeks are earlier on. So we are definitely going to struggle at some points there in that stretch. Like, there's just no doubt. So we got to get the wins early against the teams we're supposed to beat. I believe the athletic director even mentioned that the 6-game point, the midpoint of the season, was going to be kind of a time to kind of check in with Scott on how things are going, right, in his future coaching possibilities at Nebraska and everything, right? So if we come into that and we're 5-1 and our only loss is to Oklahoma, and we didn't get blown out by them or whatever, Scott's feeling real good, and I would be feeling real good too.
Yeah. But even that, let's say you're 5-1 at that point. Let's look at the rest of the games. Okay, you're 5-1, then you have to play Illinois at home. That becomes, to me, a critical game, because that gets you to your 6 wins and bowl eligibility. If you don't win that game, then the rest of the schedule is Minnesota, at Michigan, Wisconsin, and at Iowa.
Right.
So those last 4 games are against, our one of our nemesises in Minnesota, a Michigan team that's going to be, is top 10 preseason. Wisconsin, who's also going to be highly regarded, top 15 or so, and Iowa, who won the division last year, no, they didn't win it last year, but they beat us, even though they shouldn't have. Again, last year we were better than Iowa.
Right.
We were a better football team, and we found a way to lose and gift them the game, and that's because we got outcoached.
Right. You are forgetting about one game, because the midpoint of the season is Rutgers. That's our 6th game. And then we play at Purdue the next week.
Oh, you know what? You're right, because this one does not show that Northwestern one, because it's week 0. Okay. So we play Rutgers, and then Purdue is the next week, right?
Yeah. And they're both away.
Yep. They're both away. Yep. So
both teams we should win, but the fact that they're away and they're back-to-back is tricky.
And I'm going to tell you that at Rutgers game, that Rutgers team, way better than people think. That game scares the heck out of me. By no means is that an automatic W for us, right? So that's one we could easily lose. Purdue also, one we could easily lose. The Illinois at home, you'd like to think you could beat them at home, right? Minnesota at home, well, you'd like to think we could beat them at home. I mean, in terms of talent, we should be somewhat comparable to them in talent. Mm-hmm. So, gosh darn it. But yeah, I agree with you. That at Rutgers game is going to be another really super critical game for us.
Yep. Okay, so is your official prediction 7-5 then, same as me?
My official prediction is 7-5. I think we turn the corner enough to keep Scott his job.
All right. This is good because usually I feel like I'm the more optimistic one. You're a little bit more pessimistic, but I like that.
Yep.
What you're hearing is, giving you signs of
Yeah.
improvement.
Well, the whole key, like I said, it's all about the offensive line, and I'm choosing as I look through the glass, so to speak, of the future.
Right.
I'm looking at it with the thought that okay, we're going to have some reasonable health in our offensive line, and that Cochran is going to be able to play this year and play at an effective level, and that Teddy is going to be able to play and play healthy and effective, because those are some big boys, some talented offensive linemen. I mean, those two right there that I just mentioned were, rivals 100 offensive linemen. I mean, they were some of the top offensive linemen in the country when they came into our program. So if they met and played to the hype, then we would have one heck of a left side of our offensive line.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this has been a great podcast. We're hoping to do one more before the Northwestern game to properly preview how that game's going to go before you fly out, of course.
Yes. And that is such a critical game, and that's why that one will be important.
Yes, for sure. All right. Well, we hope all you out there enjoyed listening to the podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on Anchor, where our podcast lives. We can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a rating or review there. We always love listening to the fans' feedback and constructive criticism. So thank you all out there for listening, and thank you, Dad, for joining me for this episode. And until next time, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.